For this unit, we are going to try to round to the nearest 10, hundreds, thousands, using estimations involving whole numbers. Let's take this problem for example. The table shows the number of miles that a family will travel next summer. And here are their lists. Home to a Dinosaur Valley State Park is 81 miles. They're going to go from that park to the Longhorn Cabin, 129. The Longhorn Cabins to Stephen F. Austin State, 181, and so on. It's asking us for the best estimate of the combined number of miles that this family will travel. What it's asking us to do is to combine these numbers together using the process of estimation. If you remember from our previous videos, estimation is just another form of rounding. And it's a very loosely based term that is not so specific to rounding to either the tens or the hundreds in this case. So to prove that, we are going to estimate the total sum of all of these miles by rounding each one to the hundreds, and then we will again solve the same thing using the solution of rounding to the nearest tens. So take this for example. We will start by estimating these two together by rounding them to the hundreds. 81 is closer to 100 than it is 0. So this one rounds up to 100. 129 is closer to 100 than it is the next value of 200. And so we're going to round this one down to 100. 181 is going to be rounded to 200, as it's closer to 200 than it is 100. 110 is closer to 100 than it is 200. 288 is closer to 300, and 78 is still closer to 100. Now, what we are going to do is we are going to try to solve the sum of all of these miles. This is the estimation part. We rounded them to get an approximate answer. So let's do this for example. The first travel. This is going to be 100 plus 100, which is 200 miles, approximately. Then we have these two sets, 200 and 100. That's going to be 300. And then we have an approximation of 300 and 100 miles, which is about 400 miles. Because we're not done, we need to add up all of them. So here's another grouping. 200 and 300 is 500. And then we have our last one, 400. 400 plus 500 is 900. So our answer should be about 900 miles if we were to add up all of those miles. Now let's round it to the tens and see if we get the same answer. The same answer should be about 900. So let's do that again. 81 to the nearest tens would round to 80. 129 to the nearest tens would be 130. 181 to the nearest tens is 180. 110 stays the same. 288 rounds to 290. And 78 rounds to 80. If we were to find the sum of all of these, we would do the same method we did over here with the hundreds. Let's go ahead and add these up. 80 and 130. The way that we add is by our ones placed first, which we know to be 0. 8 and 3 is 11. We're going to carry the 1, which is 1 and 1. That's 210. We're then going to add 180 and 110. Start with the ones place. 0 and 0 is 0. The tens place, 8 plus 1, which is 90. And then we have 1 and 1 in the hundreds place, 200. And finally, the last group, 290 plus 80. 0 and 0 is 0. The 90 and 80 is going to be 170, so I carry my 100 to the hundreds place. That 1 and 2 is 370. Just like we did before, we're going to continue to combine all of these mileages. 0 and 0. 10 and 90 is going to be 100. So I carry the 100 to the next place. 200, 200, and 100, which would be 500. So then we take the next grouping of 370, and we're going to add it to our total. 0 and 0 0 tens and 70 we know to be still 70. And 5 and 3 is 870. 870 is very close to 900. So we can estimate that the combined number of miles that they will travel would be 900 miles. Take example, the next one. The table shows the number of cartons of milk that this cafeteria sold each day last week. We have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's every day of the week. Which of these is the best estimate of the number of cartons of milk that the cafeteria sold last week? We are going to again estimate, which means we're going to round them up to a number that's easy to calculate. Because nothing was taken away, we're going to add every single one for every day and see what could be the approximate number of cartons that were sold. We're going to do the same thing since it's in hundreds. Let's go ahead and round it to the nearest hundred. Take 352. That rounds up to 400 because 52 is closer to the next 100 than it is 0. 426 is closer to 400. 449 is just underneath the cutoff point, which would still round to 400. 373 rounds up to 400 if we're still looking at the hundreds place. 402 still rounds down to 400. If we were to combine all of these, 400 and 400 is 800. 400 and 400 is 800, plus the last 400. You can continue 1,600 and 400. If you were to add all those up, we would get 2,000. So the approximate number of cartons of milk that the cafeteria sold is 2,000. If we were to do the same thing with the tens, we would still get a number that would be close to 2,000. Let's try it anyway. 352, if we were to round that to the nearest 10, would be 350. 426 would round to the nearest 10, 430. 449 would round up to 450 if we're still on the tens. 373, rounding down, would still be 370. 402 would still round to 400. It's closer to 0 than it is 10. So if we were to add all these up, we could do the same thing. 350 and 430, we start with the 0, which is in the ones place. 50 and 30 equals 80. And 300 and 400 equals 700. So we have 780 for Monday and Tuesday. 450 and 370 start with the zeros in the ones place. 50 and 70 is equal to 120, so we're going to carry the 100 over. 400 and 300 is 700, plus 100 is 800. Now we finally have the last 400. If we add these up, we would still have the group of zeros in the ones place. 80 and nothing is still 80. And 700 and 800 would be 1,500. Then we have our last group of 100 for Friday. And we're going to add that up and we get 0, 8, 9, 1 for a total of 1,980, which is 20 away from 2,000. So the best approximate number of cartons of milk would be about 2,000 cartons of milk. Join us next time for adding and subtracting decimals using standard algorithm.